Yo. Sorry about the noise. Let me go ahead and bring that down a little bit. What's going on, guys? So we're gonna go ahead and wait until a couple more people come in. It's not 10 o'clock just yet, but we're gonna go ahead and see what we can do. All right, sorry. Um, we're just working on the link, sending it in, and then we'll go ahead and get going with this. Um, here we go. No, I don't have a damn shop light. What you see is what you get, man. All right, so we're just gonna wait for a couple more people to go ahead and show up. There we go. So it's 10 a.m. Let's see if we can go ahead and post the link over to the group page and see what we can do. Yeah. If you want a shirt like that, get it, my brother. He'll get you going. All right. All right, we got some folks in here. Actually, we got almost none. It might be a little bit too early for you guys, but I'm gonna go ahead and see what we can do here. Sorry about that. First time we're going live on the group page, so we'll see what's up. What's going on, guys? Hey, hit up that comment right over there in case whatever, just to let me know who you are, and we'll go from there. Whatever questions you guys have, just be sure to go ahead and type it in as well. We're still waiting on some people. I know this is bad lighting, but sorry. I don't know what else to say. Look at that hair action right there. I need to cut it for a little bit. All right, folks. So this morning I was up at around 3 o'clock in the morning or so, just getting a car dyno tuned because I wasn't gonna have any time right after. I got a couple appointments. I got this to do with you guys, and after this, I got to go ahead and update my filing status with the state. Got to do all that stuff. So it's gonna be a pretty busy day for me at least. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. So the reason why we were up at 4 a.m. is that I told the customer, look, man, let's go ahead and I know you've been needing a tune for quite some time. I know that. And we had scheduled you in 100% correct. However, I'm going to be, unexpected appointments came up. That's just the way that the VA works. So let's go ahead and get you going if you're able to go ahead and do 4 a.m. Perfect. He told me, yeah. All right, let's go ahead and do it. So we went all the way up to the shop. I think it was around 3:45 or so. Opened up doors and everything. Customer came by, shut the car down, and we tuned it. The only problem that it had, and this is one of the things that will happen no matter which tuner you're going with, is that you are going to end up with certain issues, kind of like for instance with this car, the car would go into open loop fault. Now, what that means is that open loop fault means that the O2 sensors stop trimming. Trimming means that the the short and the long-term fuel trims are not making any are not making any adjustments to perfect the fueling. Now, with that, bank two O2 sensor also shut off. It went to zero. It zeroed out. Nothing we can do at that point. So I informed the customer, hey man, so what's the deal over here? No, bro, I got extensions on my long tube headers, and they're extensions that I bought off of this guy or whatever. Turns out that they're not receiving the proper voltage or whatever, so they're zeroing out. I'm not sure if they're not plugged in 100% or what the deal is, but the O2 sensor was basically dying at wide throttle, and then once we put it back to idle, the O2 sensor started actually dying even at idling. So I had to tell the guy, look, man, we can go ahead, we can finish sending it and all that. However, with the vehicle going into open loop fault, it's just one of those things where if we can't see it, then there's really nothing that we can do at that point. Can we make the necessary adjustments? Sure. But I'm the type of guy that I want to make sure that everything is 100%. So even though I don't see it as a waste of time being there at 4 a.m., I don't see it. And customer had fun. That's the best thing about it too. He had fun. We did everything, and so he's bringing the car back. Once he brings us new O2s, we're gonna go ahead and do the factory extension. If you guys already know about that, and we'll get it going. All right, it's a 3.7. There you go. What's going on, my guy? Let's see here. So what are one of the things that you guys want to learn about? For me, if I was like in Like if I had a V6 Mustang, and I was new to it, I think the first thing that I would kind of ask would be, hey, what does a tune entail? What goes on in a tune, right? So with that, there we go. That's a little bit better lighting. I love my hat though. So what does a tune entail? So we ask our customers, what modifications do you have? Motor intake, injectors, exhaust, the works, right? And the reason for this is because, especially the cold intake, this was true with the cold intake more than anything, because in the older vehicles, say like in 1999, let's just say it, the mass airflow sensor housing, the mass airflow sensor was in its own housing, right? So whichever cold intake that you wanted to add, say it was an air raid, a JL2, whatever, it still kept that factory size housing, because it's in its own housing. On these vehicles from '05 and up, the housing is inside the cold intake. So when the cold intake changes, the airflow model changes with it as well, right? So when that happens, the vehicle is going to start reading incredibly lean. There's less velocity, but more volume. So now you need to go ahead and correct the airflow model for that particular cold intake. And we do that by sending out a tune. Say the mass airflow sensor, it's X size, and the factory size is X, the new size is Y. We get the difference, we multiply it to the airflow model, and we can kind of get close to it. But then that's why we ask the customers, send us an idle data log, right? And we'll go off of the fuel trim so that we can go ahead and correct the fueling, right? We'll shut off adaptive learning for the time being. We'll make the necessary adjustments for idle, for stationary RPM sweeps. Now, stationary RPM sweeps basically is your park and you're just revving the vehicle from idle to about 1,000 RPM. And you're just going to keep sweeping all the way until about 3,500 RPMs, give or take. Make sure that the vehicle is nice and at operating temperature at this time. You don't want to do it on a cold engine. So you do that. You send us the data log. We'll look it over. It might be off by 7%, might be off by 15%. Whatever the case is, we are going to make those necessary adjustments. Once we get that ironed out, we'll send over an update. Then the customer will go ahead and send us a data log to see if it's correct. And if that's the case, then now we're going to go ahead and put it in drive and drive it down the road, put load on it. More load, more airflow that the vehicle is going to need. So with that, we're able to go ahead and calibrate an even larger scale of the airflow model. We dial that in. Once we make sure everything's 100% and everything's looking great, then we ask for a second or third gear pull. That way we can dial the rest of it in. Once that is done, and I tell everybody this, dialing in the airflow model is about 75% of the tune. Everything else is going to be spark, torque limiters, so on and so forth, variable cam, timing, drive-by-wire, whatever. So it's just those things that we have to do before we move forward. So once we dial that in, then we'll go ahead and do a watt up throttle pull, get fueling 100%. If we'll adjust the limiters to go much higher, but in the safer side too. We don't want to eliminate them either. We'll adjust the spark timing based off of the knock activity that it's receiving. If it's receiving good or bad, we'll make the necessary adjustments there. Because remember, all of this is based off of your fuel. It's not based off of what I think it's going to be, what it's going to take. Because I can try and force it whatever I want to do. But if the vehicle isn't taking it because of inadequate fuel, octane, then we just have to go ahead and adjust based off of their vehicle, not what we think, right? Sometimes you'll get knock activity. So say you're boosted and we are supposed to see maybe about 15, 16 degrees of timing, but the vehicle's only seeing 8, you have an X amount of knock activity. Okay, hold on. We know fuel's great. Spark is nowhere near knock levels. So what's really going on? So then that's when we start investigating for false knock through the exhaust, through the engine, through whatever. Start looking through that. And then we adjust until everything is 100%, right? Let's see. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the comments. Try to get more people. Is the average wheel horsepower that you see with the tune with everything else being stock? Let's see. You see with a tune, everything else being stock. Normally, I would have to pull up the dyno charts. This is a brand new laptop. I have another laptop that broke. I had all the screenshots and everything of all the dyno graphs. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the 3.7 auto, they usually make maybe what, like 257 or so. We usually bump it up to 269, 272, somewhere around there, tune only. But it doesn't really tell the whole tale. See, most dyno tuners, they try and just say, hey, I'm going to dyno tune it and call it a day. We do that. We do that as well. However, the difference is that we also take the vehicles um, to log it on the streets as well, depending on how many mods the vehicle has. Like if it has a converter, we definitely want to dial in the lockup rates and everything, when it locks, and so on and so forth. So my dyno has this simulator. It's a quarter mile simulator, right? And basically what it does is it adds load depending on the vehicle, the weight and everything. And I'm able to go ahead and go wide open throttle on my dyno from a standstill. I'll be able to know when it shifts, when it's locking, if it's having any surge or flare during the shift, so on and so forth. That's a great piece of equipment. That's why they're very expensive. So I'm able to go ahead and do that as well and make sure everything is dialed in. So just tuning it like that doesn't really tell the whole story. Now I've tuned a lot of these 3.7s to know how the transmission is supposed to perform, with the locking and everything, and it does a great thing. I mean, it's a great deal. It's just one of those vehicles that Ford really got it right. You got great gas mileage. You got a fantastic transmission. You got variable cam timing on a V6. It's amazing. It's an amazing motor. All right, let's go ahead and see what we got here. I'm looking to install Pro Charger kit within a few weeks. Can you do remote tuning to get the car running with the kit? Then move on to data logging for dialing in. Of course, that's one of the things that we do. Now, my question, well, it's not really a question, but it's the S187 3.7s, they have a mass airflow sensor. And just like what I was mentioning, you have to dial that in first and foremost. That's about 75% of the tuning. Now we have a airflow model that's very close for all vehicles, but we always ask for the same type of data logging so that we're able to go ahead and fine tune it from there. Now, if you have an S550, you'll need an upgraded map sensor so that it can see boost. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck at what, like 2 psi, I think, depending on what your elevation is or whatever. So, with the map sensor, we usually go with a 2.5 bar map sensor, put it in, we'll enter the speed density data, and usually it gets rolling no problem. If it needs minor adjustments, we'll go ahead and do it then. But yeah, we can definitely get it going. Let's see. What do you think is the best mod for power for the 3.7s? Honestly, it's the exhaust. It's the exhaust. The intake manifold is fantastic. If you guys ever seen the intake manifolds made by Ford in previous vehicles, let's call it the 3.8 Mustang. Let's just say, I know it's a completely different one because it's an overhead valve. It's not dual overhead cam or anything like that, or cam timing for that matter. So the intake manifolds, they left a lot to be desired. Let's just put it that way. Incredibly long runners. They tried to do the split port deal where one runner was a little bit shorter than the long runner. It didn't quite work out that well. I mean, it was great during those times, but it's 2021, and the intake manifolds that the 3.7s carry on right now, they're very, very good. They're very efficient as well. The ports are pretty good size as well. So those are great. However, when it comes to modding, the best mod bang for the buck on these vehicles is definitely going to be the exhaust. You put the car on the rollers or at the track or whatever, you adjust the variable cam timing on the exhaust, you are going to make some fucking power. That's just the way it is. You're going to make some power because that's where the 3.7s excel at. You put long tube headers, you adjust the cam timing a bit more depending on, you know, what it's seeing, how load changes. It's not going to change a whole lot, but it's definitely going to change a bit enough to notice it. You make the necessary adjustments there, and you're going to see some gains from there as well. So boost is great, but it's very expensive. And if you are new to the 3.7s and you want to go ahead and add some modifications, start with the exhaust. The cold air intake is fine. It gets really good ambient temperatures from outside. It doesn't heat soak. The problem comes from the restricted exhaust. That's where it is. The dyno that I own is a Dynacom DC 5000 with an eddy brake. It's a Fragola eddy brake, if I remember correctly. It took us a while to get that thing dialed in, and I'm sure Caleb, that's watching right now, remembers those days. It was a pain in the ass, man. It was. I think it took me maybe about 2 to 3 months to make sure that the load settings met with what the inertia was, and then test it back to back to make sure that it's functioning properly. And it took quite a bit of time, but we finally got it dialed in, and it's been working great ever since. The only problem I think is going to be the speed sensor. It's not the greatest design by any means, but you know it works. Sometimes you get inconsistent readings, so I'll probably just buy like 2 or 3 of them just to have them on the back pocket in case one of them goes out again. Let's see here. P1X 3.4 pulley DW. I want to go 85 stock cats. How much should I expect? We'll see. That's another thing right there. That cats really kill you big time, and I understand. You know, with everything's going on right now, you'll probably end up having to go with a high flow cats. But if I remember correctly here, we had a P1SC, not the X, the P1SC on an S553.7 factory exhaust, cats, everything. And I think that thing made 463. I think, can't remember. I think it was a 463. If you guys know David builds vlogs, that's him. So when we went to an off-road catted system, not long tube headers, just the cat leads, it went to 484, if I remember correctly. That's on a P1SC, right? And we were only at 10 pounds of boost. Don't quote me on the size of the pulley because I can't remember, to be honest with you. I just know that it was about 10 pounds of boost because that's what the map sensor was telling us that it was reading. Let's see. With the speed density tune, can you change out the pulley without requiring a retune? See, here this is kind of like this is an interesting question because the way that we build our tunes is based off load. More boost, more load, right? So the way that we tune is that here is load, right? And here's the whole table. And this is RPM right over here on the axis. So if you pull it down, it's going to increase load. And what we do is we renormalize the settings for load. So say at 10 pounds of boost, you're seeing maybe about 16 degrees of spark timing, right? Let's just say that. It's just an example. At 10 pounds of boost, you're seeing about 16 degrees, 15, 16, whatever, depending on RPM and fuel quality. If you pull it down to about 14 pounds of boost, it's going to take it into a different load bracket, and your spark timing is going to go down. Now, the answer to the question is going to be yes and no. Yes, you can do it, and it might just be fine, but I'm a fan of logging it just to make sure that there's no knock activity. You're not running out of fuel because remember, when you pull it down and increase boost, you're not just dealing with raising boost and getting a little bit less spark. No, now you're increasing the demand for fuel, right? So when you pull it down, I would recommend to relog and send it in because we need to make sure that you aren't running out of fuel, right? You aren't running out of fuel. You're not getting any knock activity. You're not hitting any other limiters as well. Sometimes you'll end up getting torque truncation if it's not turned off, or other limiters for that matter that can cause the throttle body to close up on you, right? So it's always best to go ahead and relog, send it in, and we'll revise it. If it's good, fantastic, keep on trucking. But if it needs adjustments, which most of the time I think it's going to need, regardless of the matter, just send it right in. It doesn't cost you a whole lot, and it's always good to say, hey man, I just want to make sure everything's 100%. Let's go ahead and get it done. We do that. All right. We talk. What's up, Devon Smith? Devon Smith. I remember him from 2 years back, if I remember correctly. He was dealing with MPT and his Pro Charger. I think he has a P1SC, and he would mention to MPT that his car could not make any boost. I mean, it's a belt-driven system. You're supposed to see boost unless it's leaking somewhere, right? So I said, Devin, man, let me go ahead and send you base tune. I'm not going to charge you anything, but I'm an enthusiast first and foremost, right? So I said, Devin, let me go ahead and send you a tune real quick just to see how it performs. It's all boost, man. It's all boosted. It was fine. I think he had an issue with a trans brake module or something. I can't remember. We kind of drifted off a bit afterwards, but from my understanding, he saw a boost, but there was something going on with that. So I can't really remember 100%. What gears do you think is best for the 3.7 auto and manual? The 373 seems to be a very good popular modification, but you got to remember that the 6R80 trans has a 417 first gear ratio, right? You got to remember that. So sometimes even a 373 might be a bit too steep. So then you have to adjust your tire size for it if you're either spinning too much or first gear doesn't last long by any means. So some folks end up changing out to a 28-inch tire, which helps it out, dramatically. So my recommendation would be go to the track, see what gear you go to the traps, right, and at what RPM, and then you'll be able to make your determination there. But 373 seems to be a very popular mod. MT82, if all you're gonna do is just quarter mile, you can go 373s or 390s or even 410s. But like I said, it all depends on where you're trapping at what RPM and then in which gear. MT82s have a fifth gear 1-to-1 ratio, so you got plenty of gears to go. Instead of the 6R80, it starts with a 417 gear ratio, and it only has four gears before you end up going with an overdrive. Let's see. Not many companies tune the 3.7 platform. Why do you decide to do so? Well, I've been tuning them from the very beginning, man. Matter of fact, we were one of the very first to come out with a ghost cam tune on those things. I think MPT was the first ones, but then again, they're a very large company. They're very respected, and you don't grow a name out of nothing, right? You just don't do that, right? So I got nothing against anyone, but I think they did build a ghost cam tune first, and then we were the ones that followed suit. Now there's plenty of ways on how you create the ghost cam tune on the 3.7s, but that's, I think, a whole different subject. The reason why a lot of people don't go for the 3.7s, to be honest with you, it's kind of the same way that most people don't want to bother tuning the older V6s. And that's because they profit a lot more in volume with the Coyotes than they do the 3.7s. The 3.7s, you got to understand, those were built for for people that like the looks. They kind of want a little bit more power, and they're just going to use it for cruising. Whereas a Coyote, more people are inclined to go ahead and put aftermarket parts onto them than they do the Cyclone. So for most tuning companies, they profit a lot more from the Coyotes and the GT350s, the Boss 302s, and stuff like that, because the market is just much bigger, right? The 3.7 Cyclone market is big, don't get me wrong, but the Coyote and the other ones, they're just far larger, right? So not many people want to invest any research and development or time and effort onto these Cyclones. It's just not their preference, I guess you would say. Let's see. The car made boost on your tune. Very grateful to help JMP plug and play transfer. It's not made for the 3.7, 6R80 lesson learned. And that's just one of the things, man. It kind of sucks too, because some people will say, hey, we'll go ahead and try it. You won't find out if it works or doesn't unless you try it. And sometimes it can end up costing you either an engine, a trans, or whatever. It's just the nature of the beast. And I don't really know what to say with that, because it's just one of those things where you lose a lot of money. You learn from it, sure, you learn from it, but it's just one of those things where it just sucks, man. And I feel for anyone that had that happen to them. It's happened to me too. That's the only way that you can learn too, right? I'm seeing just as many Model 37s as 5.0s here in Arizona. That may very well be. Here in Texas, it's different, man. Texas, we have more Chevy trucks than you do Coyotes or anything else. So it all depends on your area, really, right? So if your area is very popular with the 37s or 5.0s or Mustangs in general, then yeah, you're going to definitely see that. But down here in Texas, especially down here in South Texas, GM trucks pretty much rule the streets around here. I mean, they don't rule them because we got the shit out of them. But what I mean by rule is that they're more populated in a sense, right? So depending on what your area that might be, or in a different area, the SRT4 might, be king around that area, or the Subarus, or whatever. It really just depends. Now, one thing I did want to bring up with you guys is that with everything that's going on with EPA and whatever, you guys are going to end up seeing more of that from here on out, and it's not going to change. It sucks to say it, man, but the only way that we can go ahead and change it if something happens with the administration, where they either put a halt to it or something that's completely out of our control. So if you guys end up seeing, more engine lights, more this or that, or more warnings before a tune gets purchased, you already know why, right? It sucks, but I mean, man, that shit sucks. All right, so let's see. Devon Smith, I lost a transit in engine. Glad 37s are cheap. That is true. The 37s are pretty cheap, man. They're very, they're very affordable. It's not like when I did a Coyote swap on my 01 GT, where an F-150 motor was about 2,200 or so for the whole engine, heads and everything. So they're definitely a lot cheaper, and you can get them anywhere, really. So that's really good. Let's see. Fingers crossed, we're both off the radar. Look, it's just one of those things, man. We've always been compliant regardless of the matter. And it's kind of funny to me, too, because some vehicles that are purchased by the dealership or traded in or whatever, they have modifications they don't want to return back or anything for that matter. So sometimes it's more cost effective for the dealership to just sell the car as is to customers. We had this one boss too that came to the shop one time because the dealership had that vehicle. It had a quarter intake exhaust. I can't remember what it had injectors. And the only thing that the dealership can do is try and flash it to stock, but it's not going to work, right? The customer says he wants those modifications in there because that's what he bought the car for. That's what the salesman told him that it's going to include, right? So with the dealership, it's a Ford dealership, keep in mind. What they did is they contacted us and said, hey, man, can you guys get this going, whatever? It's running incredibly rich, which it was. The spark plug was black as hell, right? So now, you got vehicles coming out of the dealerships that are running incredibly rich. They're not running efficient. In fact, they're wasting a whole lot of gas, right? The supposedly Clean Air Act or whatever. It's, and if we have this on our local dealership, I'm sure it's multiplied by the thousands nationwide. So we took the vehicle and we made the vehicle run clean. That's our whole job with the whole thing, is to make it run incredibly clean. Because if you run it rich, I mean, not only is it going to get terrible gas mileage, and it's just bad for the engine, right? If you make it run too lean, the cylinders get incredibly high. You don't want that. I'm sure you guys already know the consequences behind that. But so we made it run incredibly clean. Fuel trims were spot on. Everything was good to go. Customer was incredibly happy. He said he didn't want to race it or anything like that. He just wanted to cruise around for it. And I respect that. You know, there's a lot of people that do that. They get Boss 302 cars, GT 500s. They just want to cruise, make sure it's running right, reliably, and that's it. And that's our job, man. Customers get a blower and no tune. They just slap some injectors or whatever. It's not going to run right, man. In fact, it's going to run worse than EPA standards. So our job is to go ahead and make sure that it's running 100% efficiently, right? That's our job. We're not trying to do anything. We're not like diesels that they intentionally want to roll coal, you know, affecting the climate or whatever they want to say that it affects. But we're not out here to do that. We want these vehicles to run incredibly efficient, great gas mileage, and we do get a lot of great gas mileage by variable cam timing through the exhaust and the RPM. If you guys want to talk about that a little bit, we can go ahead and do that too. Dealers around here will tell you the car has never been tuned, then you buy it in their warranty, need to use a warranty, and they'll say, no, it's been tuned. Yep, that's exactly right. 100% on that. So the with that Boss 302 customer that came by, he told the dealership, fix it or do whatever you got to do, or I return the car back, right? I think Texas has a lemon law where the dealership has to take the vehicle back and fix it or whatever. So the dealership cut a check to us so that we can go ahead and fix it and give it to the customer. Never had problems. And ever since then, if they have another vehicle with similar issues, they already know to contact us. We'll go ahead and get it going, right? Do you see any gains on a E85 NA tune for the 3.7s? Yeah, and he live right by me too. Well, the potential is there. It's definitely there. You just have to increase the cylinder pressure dramatically in order to see some gains. Now, how much pressure do you want to add in, and are willing to put that much pressure into the cylinder for X amount of gains? If it's between 5 to 7 horsepower, person that wouldn't do it, you know. But there are some people that have seen some good gains. I think, what's his name? I can't remember. A local customer. His name is Austin. I forget his last name. He gave maybe like 12 or 13 rear wheels just on motor. Is that worth it to you? I don't know. I mean, the injectors are pretty cheap nowadays, so you can put that, get an E85 tune, and if you want to squeeze every little bit of power, go for it. Not a problem. Right? I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, some customers will say, hey, I want to spend X amount of money and get the gains from E85, but it's going to cost me X amount. But this is my budget. I tell them, you know what, man, just save up a little bit more. You can probably end up getting better modifications. If you don't have long tube headers already, that alone is going to be worth more than what the injectors and the E85 can go ahead and give you, right? And it runs much more efficient too, the exhaust. How far are you from Waco, Texas, between Austin and Dallas? Man, that's about 9 hours for me. I'm way down south. I'm deep South Texas, bro. Way down south. We are in an area close to the Brownsville area here down where I'm from. How much boost before you need to wind your ring gaps? You know, we haven't had the opportunity to forge an engine here in-house. And honestly, I think that would be best suited for an engine builder, you know, that does all of that stuff. We have our own machine shop down here that they do everything. We just give them the specs, like, hey, man, we're running this amount of boost. It's on through a Sentry. These are the heads. This is the compression that we're going to run into. Do your thing. I'm not going to pretend and say, hey, you need this file gap, you need this, this, and this, because my primary job is to go ahead and wrench, go ahead and tune. You leave that to me, I'll get you going 100%. I'm not going to go ahead and tell a machinist, a machine shop, this is what I want. And if something fails, then that's on me, right? I let the pros do their thing. Hey, man, if you say that a 1-inch gap is great, obviously it's not. If that's what you say, then by all means, but if it don't, I'm coming after you, bro. You know what I mean? One of the things I want to touch base with you guys too is the adjustable octane tune. Now, that's not the name that we came up with. The original name that we came up with was octane adjustment tune, right? Basically, same thing. Basically, what this is, especially with gas prices being as high as they are, and I've done a lot of dyno testing with this too on an MD 1100 dyno and on my own personal dyno too. Now, what this is, and we sell it. We haven't really advertised it too much because gas has always been cheap, so it's whatever. But now that gas prices are going up, we're probably going to end up starting to advertise it. But basically, what it is that it's a tune meant for 87 octane, right? Now, here's the great thing about these engines and the PCMs. I don't think a whole lot of people talk about it either, but you know, I like going down the rabbit hole a little bit, start testing our own thing, and whatever we come up with, we can go ahead and either scrap it or we can offer it to customers. Now, the computer has these things, these multipliers, whatever, based off of what the vehicle is seeing for knock activity, right? So say you have 87 octane, perfect. You can run it, you'll have power still. You have more power than stock, better drivability, throttle response, trans, everything, 87, no problem. Now, you fill up with 93 octane. You say, you know what, gas prices went down a little bit. Or you know what, I got me a fat check today. I'm gonna fill up with 93. Okay. So what this tune does is that it takes the factory settings for the octane adjustment and it enhances it that much more. I've done back-to-back testing on both the Mustang dyno and on my own personal dyno, where a dedicated 93 tune is almost, I mean, this octane adjustment tune is almost the same as a dedicated 93 tune. It's not a flex fuel because it's not going to E85, although we could probably make something like that too. But this thing adjust for 87, 89, 91, 93 octane. Hell, we can even adjust for 97 octane if need be. And we do offer this tune, right? So we make these adjustments and it's just fantastic, man. It's great, right? So we enhance what the PCM already does, we enhance it even further. And when you test them both side to side between a dedicated 93 and octane adjustment tune, it's damn near identical, right? We do offer it. It's a separate sale from the base tune and everything, but we can include it. We can include a dedicated 93 if you want to, or we can send the other one as an option. It's fantastic, man. You guys would really, really love it, especially with gas prices being the way that they are. You guys, I think, will take full advantage of it. All right. Should I buy an aftermarket AFR gauge from S550 or the stock one on the screen read correctly? The one on the gauge is based off of your stoic on the PCM and what the O2 sensor is registering. So yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great wideband sensor. If you're tuned for E85, it's going to display 9.85 AFR because that's what stoic is, right? So I keep it. It's fantastic. Installing my GFE boost controller. Where is the AFR wire to tap into 15 pluses with the Ruds kit? I think that'd be a great question to go ahead and ask the guys at Ruds. Now, we haven't had the chance to go ahead and install one of those gauges on our end to be able to go ahead and try and give you a precise answer. If I did, perfect. If I'd be able to provide it, but I mean, I'm not gonna go ahead and lie to you guys, man. When the difference between 87 and 93 is about $1 a gallon, I like this option for any setup. Exactly right. You are 100% correct. I wouldn't do it on boost. I can't risk it on boost, right? My 13 F-150 EcoBoost, I have it set to 18 pounds of boost. Now I can return it to factory boost levels and make it run 87. But personally, when it comes to boost, I like to stick to 93. That's what I like to do. I like to log the OER. You will always know if you have good tank gas or not. Fantastic. That's a great statement right there. See, and that's what a lot of people don't see in that logs or care to log. You know, a negative number in your OER is a great thing. It's a great thing, and it's what it uses to go ahead and use those multipliers to enhance your overall spark timing at the end of the day, right? It's a fantastic tool, and we use it to make our octane adjustment tunes, right? It's a phenomenal thing that Ford did there. great. I wouldn't do it on boost, like I said. I would not. Some people do. I don't. I don't like it. I just I don't know, man. One bad batch of gas and your OER is fine. Like say your OER is negative 95 or 96 for that matter, and you put in, it's a fresh 93 that I already learned. It's great. Then you put some 87 octane and you hit it right then and there. Your OER is still fine, but it hasn't made the necessary adjustments to go ahead and bring everything down. So I don't like to do it on boost. Some people do it and they're working fine. I just don't like doing it. But if you guys want that octane adjustment tune, go ahead and hit us up and we'll go ahead and provide you everything with instructions and what we look for and everything. It's fantastic, man. It's really, really great option. Now, there the Cyclone V6s, they don't get a whole lot of credit, mainly because, like I said, most tuners, they kind of like cater more to the yokes and everything, and that's fine. But these engines are strong, man. They're pretty strong. They can take a beating. I think the safe area, kind of like where the limit would be, I would call it within the 600 range, 600 horsepower range. Anything above that, it can get pretty risky from there. Even after 575, can you make more power? Fuck yeah, you can make more power. Hell yeah, you can make more power. Can you do it reliably though? It's a whole different question right there, man. It's a whole different thing. You can make 700 horsepower one day, and then it's unbuilding itself. Let's call it like that. Unbuilding itself on its own mid pull. We don't want that, right? So with every boost tune that we do, we try and inform the customer, look, man, this is what we're seeing. This is what we're commanding. This is what we're seeing in regards to AFR. If AFR decides to go ahead and bounce around a little bit, we know that that's getting spark blowouts. So you can send logs to tuners. You can send them. But if they're not paying attention to it, is it really, are you really getting your money's worth? Now, I'm not saying anybody in the Cyclone crowd is doing this. I'm more saying because I've seen this too many times, and the EcoBoost crowd still go, yeah, man, looks badass. Bye, give me your money. Well, when you really get into the whole thing of it, you see cars going into open loop faults. You start seeing knock activity going sky high. So sometimes for us, it does take us a little bit longer to reach back to you guys in regards to data log revisions and so on and so forth. But just know that that's one of the things that we're looking for. We're going through the whole thing and making sure that you've got adequate fuel in it. Spark is great, no knock activity. The throttle body's not closing up on you. Torque source is still remaining under driver demand and so on and so forth. That's what we're looking for, right? So we do take our time looking at the logs, but it's just not like, checklist, no, bye. No. We go a bit more enhanced than that. Let's see here. I agree, 600 horsepower is safe. I have blow up 2 engines after 6. Yeah, man, it's 600 horsepower. I think I would even say 575, but if some people want to push it around 600, I mean, they could, but it really just depends engine to engine. I had this Gen 1 engine. It's still alive to this day. I think it made mid 700s, I think 742s, but people say that 650 is a safe margin. And we went 100 horsepower above that, and it's still kicking. So it's just based off of engine to engine, I guess you would say. So it's just one of those things. All right, what other questions do you guys have, man? I've been in this thing for close to an hour already, and I want to make sure that we can cover absolutely everything. Let's talk about how I came about the tuning. So I went into the Army back in 2006, and I was supposed to be in for 3 years. I got stop loss when I was in Iraq, so I had to keep serving my time while I was there in Iraq. Came back, had to do all that shit, so that you can ETS. Then I finally ETS a couple months later, and then but I was tuning after I came back from Iraq because I had a buddy with the SET software. At that time, it was called the Pro Racer package that anybody could buy and add strategy codes as they go along with it. You can't do that anymore. Now they're a bit more strict since Derive bought them out. So I've been tuning since what, 09. So what is it, like 11 years, 12 years? I don't know. What can cause false knock? Anything really, especially in the exhaust. Exhaust is the most common one, especially if you have long tube headers. They hit the frame, the flanges, they rattle. The mid pipe flexes on you. It can cause false snag. Usually it's in the exhaust, usually. But if it's not in the exhaust, check your coder intake. See, this is why some coder intake companies, they have the tube that bolts down onto the what's it called? The heat shield. So it doesn't rattle or anything like that. It keeps it nice and firm to prevent any false knock from happening. All right, so and it does suck because you're trying to command maybe about 25 degrees of spark timing, 24, 25 on 93. And then all of a sudden you start seeing 19, 18, and then it jumps back up to 20s. You already know that that's false knock. Thoughts on flex fuel on boosted? It can be done. It can be done. It's just going to be extremely limited. And the reason I say that is because if you let the knock sensors add timing, that's one thing. The problem with that is that if you have a vacuum leak, it's going to think that it's on a flex fuel logic, and it's not, right? So if you do flex fuel with an automatic adder, you're not going to have a good time, right? So primarily when it comes to boost, just like I said, I don't do an octane adjustment tune on boost. And I don't do flex on boost either. Can it be done? Yeah, it can be done. Can it be done safely? Yeah, if you limit it quite a bit, but then you defeat the purpose of having an E85 tune in there, right? So it's just one of the things where I'd rather have a dedicated tune for it, so I know that I'm going to be running safe, a really good blend of ethanol in there, and it's going to have the octane that I need with the spark timing that I'm commanding it. Cheap shorty headers. Honestly, man, as long as it's better than factory, it's better than nothing. But if you're going to go through the trouble of removing your exhaust manifolds and everything like that, there's no reason why not to go with some long tubes, right? I mean, David Vlogs, we made an extra 40 horsepower, I think, with just cat deletes, right? It's just fantastic. Remember, David, he has a ProCharge D85 S550. Have you seen bad knock sensors causing false knock? Usually when bad knock sensors, when knock sensors go bad, they don't read anything. Now, there are some people that think that knock sensors being turned off to 0 means that they're turned off. It could be, yeah, it very could be. But the Cyclones, they have, and even some yokes, they have DMRs where you can log individual knock activity per cylinder, right? And that's another thing that most people aren't aware of. Usually when I'm chasing a false knock, I end up turning it to individual and I start logging the DMR so that I can see on which cylinder it's affecting. Now, don't get it confused where the individual knock means that a positive means that it's removing. It's the opposite, right? Positive number on the DMR for individual knock is adding. Negative is removing, right? So just keep that in mind. So when I'm seeing all these other cylinders adding timing and this bank, like passenger side, is having false knock, okay, now I know where to look. Now I know what's going on in that area, and then we can go ahead and find it, whether it's exhaust, something in the motor, or motor mount shaking or something. I don't know, but we end up finding it. So it's a great tool to use. I wouldn't use it all the time unless you like series and racing, but it's a great option to have. When did I had a JLT catch cam? Okay, that's for someone else. We chased those together. False knock was an ultra bitch for my car, but I made false knock my bitch. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Well, that's good for you, man. Not a lot of people have that luck. It can be a huge pain. I can tell you that right now, man. I've been on the rollers for hours chasing that thing. And some cars, they don't have those DMRs to go ahead and log. And it makes it even more difficult. So what we end up saying is, let's go to full 85. You got the injectors, you got everything to go full 85. Let's go ahead and do it. And see, we're going to stay with the same timing and see if we get knocked. If we still do it, man, then what we're going to go ahead and do is probably set it up to individual. We may or may not be able to log the individual cylinders. 9 times out of 10, you can. But in the event that you don't, we just got to do it old school. We do a pull. We look at the spark plugs and we start seeing if there's any like pitting on the inside, right, or around the strap. That's how you know that you're getting actual detonation. Or if you hear like tiny little BBs inside of a coffee can, that's what it sounds like. So then we got to do it old school, and it's not practical. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do. If you got to go old school, sometimes when vehicles go into open loop fault, meaning that the fuel O2 sensors are not going to trim, we go old school. We hook up a wideband. Let's go ahead and get it rolling. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, I mean, we got to get these vehicles up and running 100%. If they're going into open loop fault, and we've tried absolutely everything, we are still going to go ahead and get you going. It might require additional parts like an independent wideband, but at the end of the day, we're going to get you going, man. It sucks to say, but it does happen from time to time. Long tubes versus deleting cats. Scott Mehane. I recognize your name from somewhere, man. But I wouldn't say that they're similar games. I think they're cat deletes. They're great. They free up a lot of power. But the long tubes, they give you broader power, meaning that you're not just going to see peak power, but you're going to see power throughout the entire RPM. With the cat deletes, you get the same thing, but you get more top end more than anything else. Whereas long tubes, you get broader power, and that's where it really counts. I mean, how long are you going to stay at peak power? Like not even a second, not even half a second, versus the entire RPM band. You're going to stay in that RPM band a lot longer than you are at peak. So I care more about that than I do peak, right? It's kind of like super dyno queens. They stay at peak power for half a second, but everything else it's going to be total lag, or it's not going to be enough, so that's why you see a lot of Supras that can't break nines. They're stuck in the tens. So that's a perfect example right there. I sometimes see up to 8 or 6 when driving. It feels real sluggish, but then it goes negative and I get the full experience. Does it have to do with the gear? It's in the automatic? No, but if it's happening low load, low RPM, then I would probably say that it's going to be in the tune itself. That's what it sounds like. Low RPM. When you switch gears, I would say that the spark timing map on that is a little bit too high, right? Can it be false knock? It can very well be false knock. But what I would recommend is maybe add like a gallon of E85 to an almost full tank of 93. Recheck again, and if it's still present, you got false knock. If it's no longer there, you gotta have the tuner, whoever it is, whether it's me or someone else, remap it to accommodate your vehicle, right? That's my recommendation. Tulsa, Oklahoma, GRC. Hell yeah, man. GRC, now I remember you. Okay, so what's up, bro? I haven't talked to you in a bit. All right, Limon. What are my options? I live in an emission state with 91 octane gas. I know free flowing exhaust will help, but I don't know if I will be able to stand the smell. I'm tuned already as auto. Smell as in no cats, correct? Personally, I recommend getting some high flow catalytic converters, especially if you're in a very strict EPA state, emissions. I'd go with that. You won't get the smell. You'll get a little bit more power. There's some long tube headers that you can incorporate some catalytic converters onto them too, so you can do that as well, right? So there's just a lot of options, and you're going to see more options as time goes by with this whole thing that's happening right now. So I would just give it a little bit more time, and you're going to start seeing more options. A lot of the off-road stuff is already coming off the shelves. They're no longer being sold. Anybody who does sell them still are subject to getting fined. I don't know how big the fine is going to be, but it's not worth it, to be honest with you. So it's just one of those things that we're going to start seeing different types of products coming out to accommodate what's out there on the law and what us gearheads want, right? There's just going to be more options from there. Now, here's one thing that I almost forgot to mention. When I was talking about the gas mileage tunes and what we do with octane adjustment, another thing that we do add is we adjust the cam timing events through the exhaust side while you're driving so that it can act like an EGR system. So you get like an extra 2 miles to a gallon. It's not a whole lot, but it's something. So we make those necessary adjustments. Now, you don't make just a flat change onto the tunes to change the cam timing. There's different tables, there's different map points and there and everything in order for it to go to a commanded cam timing event. You got some for idle, you got some for cruising, you got some for getting on the gas a little bit harder. You got some if you're cruising at 70 miles per hour. You got another one if you're going wide up at throttle. There's different things that take place before it reaches to the conclusion on which cam events it wants to use, depending on load, depending on throttle position, depending on several other factors that comes into play in order to go ahead and come up with that cam event, right? So what we do is we log this entire thing, we log this entire process, and we make those necessary adjustments based off of what we're doing. If we're cruising at 65, 70 miles an hour consistently, it's going to go to a different point. And those are the changes that we have to make. Now, you can't just make the cam changes alone. You have to obviously make different changes and everything. But at the end of the day, this is what increases your gas mileage too. When we do the 93 race tune or whatever you want to call it, we also make those adjustments too. Instead of just making the throttle body much more sensitive, what we do is we increase cylinder pressure through the cam timing while we tip in, and it increases the throttle response without making the throttle body too sensitive. You know what I mean? We actually give it power in those areas instead of just making it more sensitive, because that really doesn't do anything other than just open up the throttle body a little bit more. And sometimes it can buck a bit. Whereas if you add actual power to the tip in point, then you're actually going to go faster instead of just going boom and going like that. You don't want that. You want a smooth transition to tip in, making more power, and that's what we do, right? That's why I wanted to go ahead and do these Tech Thursdays, because I think more information for you guys helps the entire community overall. And it doesn't just have to be me. It can be different people, but I think Mark was the one who asked me about this, and I said, sure, man, let's go ahead and do it. I'm down for anything. In case of the high flow cats, have you seen any that flow better? What brand would you recommend? The only ones that we've used are from Cooks. I don't know if they make any full. I mean, they make the universal ones, so I'm sure you can probably clamp some into some long tube headers or add some ball flanges in there, and you'll be all right after that. So I think that's one thing that you can do. But Cooks is usually the ones that we've used, and some of the kits that we've gotten, especially the GT500s. That's what we usually see them on. Hey, I'm Mark. Well, what's up, bro? All right, guys. So we've been here for a little bit over an hour. It's fantastic. Anything else you guys got going for me? I'll recommend something while I'm here. If you guys got any rifles or whatever, this thing's badass, man. This is what BCM uses, and it's outstanding. All right, we got that out of the way. Anyways, guys, so I think that's pretty much it. I think so. So if you guys need anything else or have any questions or whatever, just write them down, and we'll see you next week, and we'll go from there. I'll probably end up adding a little bit more lighting in here or reposition the desk to a different location so that we get a little bit better lighting. If I don't respond to you guys, it's because I got appointments to do right now. I got tunes to do. I got to go to a city like 20 minutes away as well. Then I got to do this business stuff. It's anyways, man. I'll catch you guys next week, and hopefully everything turns well. All right, guys. Later.